Yesterday, as we discussed the alleged Chinese espionage scandal, we thought it only fair to get in touch with the Chinese embassy. It duly responded this morning as follows. The allegation that China spies on the UK is entirely groundless. We urge the UK to stop spreading disinformation and stop political manipulation and malicious slander against China. We asked a representative of the embassy onto the programme, and I'm happy to make this a standing invitation. I hope they'll come on. They might call me a running capitalist dog or something tactful like that, and I look forward to having that discussion. Amidst the backdrop of this alleged scandal, the business secretary was in Oxford today on a tour of a mini car factory, that is to say a car factory that makes minis rather than a small car factory, after announcing a £600 million investment for electric cars. She also announced that we need China in order to reach our net zero targets, specifically with respect to Chinese electrical vehicle batteries. So, as we've discussed before, net zero will now not only make us cold and poor, but it obliges us to abandon our moral compass. To suggest that China is a serious player in the pursuit of net zero is almost as improbable as the statement its embassy provided to this programme. While British emissions, which account for a modest 1% of the global total, have been steadily decreasing over the past 11 years, Chinese emissions, which now account for nearly a third of the global total, are steadily increasing. Even though China locked down its economy harder and for longer than almost anyone else, its emissions still increased over that period. One of the key reasons we've been able to reduce our emissions is because of our transition away from coal to gas. And yet China continues relentlessly to build coal power stations. Doesn't want its people to be cold and poor. And in fact, nearly half of all coal power stations in the world are in China, over 1,100. China is not fussed about net zero. As David Starkey said last night, the only language the Chinese speak is the language of power. But the business secretary specifically referred to Chinese electric vehicle batteries. Well, as it happens, the Americans in the past few weeks have been clamping down on electric vehicle batteries from China. Why? Well, because it turns out they use Uyghur slave labour in Xinjiang to produce them, the minority against whom they are committing a genocide. So this is where net zero ultimately is taking us. It has been elevated above all other policy objectives, economic, geopolitical, social or moral. Net zero trumps them all. Are you concerned about alleged espionage taking place in Westminster, the home of our democracy? Well, net zero comes first, I'm afraid. What about the complete disregard for the international treaty that cemented the maxim of one country, two systems between China and Hong Kong? Sorry, net zero takes precedence. How about the repeated acts of aggression against Taiwan? Sorry, net zero. Are you concerned about genocide in Xinjiang? Well, I'm afraid net zero trumps that one too. As always, I want to hear from you. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts. You know the email by now, even better than the teleprompter script writer. It's mailmog@gbnews.com, not UK.